like seeing it and talking about it as a tax. And like you are taxing the ones who are already taxed in
Yeah,
all of these different areas of life. But you're putting that extra tax on me to say, Black representative, this is on you to fix all of this,
yeah.
versus saying, actually, I got a little more to give in this space. Let me support. Because you know it's wrong. Like that's the part that would get me all the time. You know it's wrong enough that you're coming to me about it. At
Mm-hmm.
what point do you internalize and say, so I need to do something about it?
Welcome to The Exit Interview, a podcast for Black educators. This podcast is more than storytelling, it's archival justice. For too long, the voices of Black educators who have left traditional spaces in education have been silenced, dismissed, or left out of the record. Here, we reclaim that narrative. Every interview is a living archive capturing the wisdom, resilience, and truth of Black educators who have shaped classrooms, communities, and generations. Together, we name the challenges: racial battle fatigue, systemic inequities, the weight of caring too much, but we also honor the brilliance and joy that Black educators bring, the creativity, the innovation, the care, and the deep legacy of resilience. Each episode is both a testimony and an offering, an act of preservation for those who came before, and a guide for those still walking this path today. By listening, you are helping to ensure that these stories are not lost but held, celebrated, and passed forward. So take a breath, settle in, and join us as we honor the past, uplift the present, and reimagine the future of education together. All right, folks, welcome back to the Exit Interview, a podcast for Black educators with me, your host, Dr. Asia, back in the studio. It's March. I don't know when you're going to be listening to this, but it's March. It's snowing here, and it's been super dry in Colorado, so happy that we're getting some moisture. And I was just talking to our next guest about the weather because she's also in Colorado, but up in the sticks, as I say, in the boonies. And so we're taking it easy. We're staying warm today, but we're not talking about weather. We're talking about Kelly Mitchell. Kelly, welcome to the Exit Interview. How are you today?
Oh, thank you. This is super exciting. It's a long time in the making. So I'm super excited to be here. Feeling good, feeling good, ready to chat it up. How are
Yeah,
you doing?
I'm good. And when she says it's a long time coming, do folks, stalking is the word she wants to say. I have been on her helmet for about like 2 years now. Like, hey, don't you want to come over here and do this exit interview? Right. So it's such a treat to have you pop up in my calendar. I'm like, it's happening. But yeah, I'm doing really good. I can't complain. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so Kelly Mitchell, she, her pronouns. Man, I'm born and raised in Denver. I also taught in Denver. All my college experiences were in Colorado, except for a brief stint in Northwestern. So I am a hometown person. I have a little one who is going to be 10 in 2 months, so I'm emotionally unwell about that.
That's
I
real.
currently so emotionally unwell. Um, I live in Erie, Colorado now, so when she says the sticks, we up here. We are up
Shout
here.
out.
We are up here. Yeah, and just trying to live my best life in the midst of today's America.
Yeah.
And to be honest, yesterday's America and the
Yeah.
day before.
We fight for our lives out here, folks.
In
We are
these
fighting for
streets.
our lives. You know, it's a lot of like, we are doing this to other countries. And I'm like, we, Black women are minding our business. Okay. We're this, don't say we did anything. Okay. We warned y'all is what we did. Okay. We warned y'all. Um, well, let's go ahead and get into it. Tell us about your education journey. How did you know that education was for you?
I think I actually came to it quite a bit later than a lot of people did. I mean, there's like generational teachers and things, and no, wasn't that. My bachelor's degree is actually in statistics. So for me, it was like I was definitely going to do something else. I was going to be in an office doing math and numbers and all these things, right? I came out of college, go Rams. I'm a CSU Ram. I came out of college in 2009, so right, recession era.
Mm-hmm.
And couldn't get a job for anything in statistics, right? I didn't have 5 to 10 years of experience. I didn't have 20 years of experience. So I ended up actually working at UC Health. I had two jobs. I was working at UC Health and then also at Sylvan Learning Center because I
Mm-hmm.
had a math degree, so I could do some tutoring, right? And I ended up as like a program manager in the audiology department. Um, and I worked with some amazing audiologists, and one of them was a pediatric audiologist. And she said, I'm about to turn this little one's cochlear implant on. Do you want to come like watch and see what that is and see how it goes? And so for like those who don't know, a cochlear implant, if you are near deaf, can help you hear, like not super clearly, but it helps you hear way more than you would have before. And so there was a little one who I think was like 1 or 2, and she was like, yeah, it'll be the first time that this little one has heard their mom's voice.
Oh,
And I
wow.
was like, oh yeah, let me go, right? Like let me jump in this. And so we went in and she like does the thing. She turns it on and I watched, she said, Mom, say something. Mom said something. And the little one's face just like lit up. It like to this day makes me emotional. It's like decades ago now.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I was like, I need to be doing something else too. Like I need to be making an impact. I need to be working with people. I need to do something. I can't go back to ideology school, so what can I do? I was on Craigslist, y'all. I was on Craigslist.
We dating ourselves, folks.
I am. I will all day, every day. I'm proud of my eras.
Amen.
So I was on Craigslist, just like, man, what other kind of jobs maybe can I do? And it was actually the Denver Teacher Residency popped up, which is a master's program. So I found my master's program on Craigslist. Through
Craigslist sells anything, people.
Craigslist,
Okay.
anything. Shout out Craigslist. And it was a fully paid for master's program through University of Denver. And if like you're from here, like that's a legit university, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
fully free. It was a year-long residency program where I was going to be in a school with a master teacher, um, doing our thing, right? And at the end, I was going to have a job in DPS. It was going to be great. So I was like, oh, I guess that's it then. I guess this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, that was really like the journey into it. I also remember, because remember, I don't come from like generational teachers. I called my mom and I was like, Mom, this is
I
what I'm
was just
doing.
about to ask you what the family was thinking about all this shifting.
I was like, Mom, I'm going back to school. I'm gonna go be a teacher. And she was like, You're gonna do what? And I was like, I'm gonna go be a teacher. She was like, You have a degree in statistics. Like, what? Why would you
Yeah.
make this change? And also thinking about her generation and era of like busing and watching Black teachers just be demoralized and all of these
Mm-hmm.
things. She was like, why would you put yourself in this situation when you got yourself like this seemingly high powered degree? And that was such an interesting conversation that at that moment, I'm 23 and I'm mad. Like, how dare you? Like, tell me I can't do what I'm about to do. But now I'm like, man, yeah, 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 right? Like,
Yeah,
there
yeah.
was some harm I exposed myself to in the
Yeah.
space that it was hard. Teachers are underpaid, teachers are all these things. And she was just trying to be like, you're sure, right?
Yeah.
So that was a real interesting conversation, but an interesting path into the world.
I know I've said this so many times on the podcast. I know folks may be sick of hearing it, but when we talk about education and trying to recruit into education, especially I'm talking to my folks in human resources or whoever does retention work or recruitment work specifically in schools and districts, we forget about families who've experienced harm in education, watched busing happen, watched integration or whatever that was happen, experience harm, hear about it from their own family who were teachers, who were principals, things like that. And so when we think that we're going to be able to recruit Black educators with a signing bonus, we forget that moms are out there really trying to make sure that their children are not harmed in education as teachers, as paras, as deans, or whatever. And so I'm glad that you mentioned that because that is such an important conversation to have. Is there are folks who are making sure that their family is well, and they don't want to see us harmed because they understand what the education system has done to us generationally. but you went into education anyway. And and yes, this is the exit interview, so we know how it ended. But tell us about your time in education. Tell us about what you taught, all the things. We want the details.
Yeah, so I went into my program and said like I'm gonna be a high school math teacher. I'm gonna be in the AP world. I'm gonna be doing all these things. I got this statistics degree. Like let's do this. And then I got placed for my residency in a middle school, and I was like, oh Lord.
What grade? I gotta ask. What grade?
I have done all three grades at this point,
Okay.
but I was placed in sixth grade.
Okay. Oh, my favorite grade
Oh
though.
my gosh. Listen, yes. And for me, there was like also going into the residency, it was like secondary education or elementary school. And I was like, y'all, I'm not meant for elementary school. I know this about
Mm-hmm.
myself. Like, I don't want to teach all the subjects. Like, it was, as teachers, I think we each have like those grade band levels that we were meant for, I think,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like there are some who were meant for elementary. Like my kid's kindergarten teacher, I was like, yes, this is what you were meant for. This is beautiful and brilliant what you're doing. I thought I was meant for high school. But man, that year in middle school, I was like, this is a good time. Like, this is
Yeah, it
actually a
is.
fun time. And so I ended up staying in middle school. Um, my first year teaching was in seventh grade, and yo, that is not for the weak spirit because
No.
seventh graders are going through it all, right? Like, you think developmentally, hormonally, all the things, and they are
Mm-hmm.
caught in a real hard spot, right? Sixth graders, they still like adults. They're still okay with adults. Eighth graders are like, I'm ready to get up out of here. So it's
Mm-hmm.
so interesting how the three grades even are so different. But I loved middle school. And I tell people often it's because like nobody peaked in middle school. Like not a single person peaked in middle school.
If you did, I feel bad for you. Like that was
Like,
it? 11?
oh man. And so we were all going through it, right?
Yeah.
Everything we experienced in middle school was the biggest feeling we were ever going to have, the end of the world, all these things. Watching it from the outside was actually quite enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. It's
Like,
not you this time. It's
it
not
wasn't,
you.
I was watching it, but I was still a math teacher, but I think even more than that, I was a life coach, right? You're just trying to help
Mm-hmm.
kids understand like what it means to grow up and how to navigate first periods and how to do all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a lot of fun. I mean, it was really, really hard, but I really enjoyed being in the middle school space. So I taught for a while. I've always been in Title I schools, because that's where I wanted to serve and where I was meant to serve. Um, I then moved into other part-time roles when I had my own little one. So I was in charge of our school's teacher residency program. I helped build our math intervention program.
And this is all in the same school
It was in
that
the
you
same
started it?
network.
Oh, the same network, but not the
Yeah,
same
yeah, yeah.
school. Okay.
So I was in the school and then we opened a second one. And so I was part of both of them.
Okay. And how
And
was
then
that?
uh, scaling schools is hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because so much of the magic of a school is in the people. And yes, the model is very, very important, but we have to be willing to shape the model based on who is in the building, whether it's the
Yeah.
students, whether it's the staff. And so I think that trying to straight up replicate is always going to be hard. You really need to be able to have flexibility to say, like, the magic is in these other spaces, that we need to figure out what the magic is in this building and really
Mm-hmm.
build from there. So that's it's a tough thing and it takes a lot of intentionality. It's not just saying we have a really good thing here, let's do it again. It does really take some intentionality.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my thought there. Then I went into a dean role in a high school because I felt like it was time to try that out. And y'all, that dean life it's hard. It is really hard. You see the hardest of the hard all day, every day, and staying well during that is difficult. It is difficult. So yeah, the journey went across multiple roles and grade bands. But I'm glad for it all.
Yeah, I want to talk about this, the dean role. Well, first, I'd love for you to talk to us about the transition, like how you knew it was time to move from one school, like the middle school, and then over to the high school. Like, what was the thing? It was like, okay, it feels like it's time. And then
Mm.
tell us more about your experience as a dean, why that particular position, you know, how you made that jump.
Yeah, so if we like think back to why I went into education, it wasn't necessarily like the math aspect. For me, it was the people aspect. And so I went through a lot in K-12 from like a home perspective. But on paper, I looked really good, right? I had the straight A's, I had all the things. So nobody was really like looking at me to be
Mm-hmm.
like, how is she doing? Is she all right? You
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think because nobody sort of clocked how I was doing, I was alone a lot and just not doing well in general. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, when I went into teaching, it was like, it was to help make it so other kids wouldn't have the same experience. Like I wanted kids to always feel like they had somebody to go to and somebody to be with and somebody who was looking out for them. And so as a dean, that's why I went into the dean life, is because I had seen so many students like fall in between those cracks. And like those were the students I really, it was time for me to really intentionally focus on. And so I was a dean, but for two grades, which is a lot of students that you're trying to make sure are
Mm-hmm.
okay, right?
About how
And
many did you
so
have in your school that you were in charge of?
um, I want to say, so for us, we were a smaller high school, so it was about 700 students total. And
Okay.
so I had 350 students I was
Okay.
watching out for. Um, And yeah, like when you're also looking at the hardest of the hard situations, there's a lot of students who are encountering those on a daily basis,
Mm-hmm.
especially in Title I schools.
Mm-hmm.
And so for that role, it was a lot. It was a lot to manage. It was a lot to try and hold even emotionally on my own when I had a 2-year-old at home. And so for a lot of it, it was I'm internalizing a lot of the emotions that I'm trying to hold for a lot of students. I'm seeing what the heart of the heart is at this young age. And then I'm going home and trying to raise a kid. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, I couldn't do both. I couldn't do both. I was put in some really hard situations as an administrator that didn't feel safe. And so at one point, it was actually our school social worker who I was very closely with. And she was like, Kelly, your kid has one mom. And like, your duty is to make sure that that one mom can mom. We will be fine if you move on. Like, it'll suck because you're great, but your kid has one mom. And as someone who grew up like without really having that mom presence, that shook me to where I was like, yeah. And right now, I'm not okay. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not okay enough to be a mom to her, so it's time to go.
Yeah.
So that was,
Mm.
I mean, that was that experience at the very end. There were definitely a few experiences too that sometimes before we say, okay, it's time to call it, we move buildings too,
Yeah.
right? Like we say, okay, maybe if I'm just under a different, what feels like a regime sometimes, if I'm just under a different setup, maybe I can do this. And so from my like first space of being, it wasn't one thing that told me it's time to go. And I would imagine most of us don't say there was like one thing. It was a series of things that were just like, you don't feel the way about me that I feel about this school.
Mm. Can you
Like
give
you
us an
don't,
idea of what you're talking about?
yeah. So like one experience for me, and this was all through my 20s too. So I should also say I did not have as strong of a sense of self even racially then that I do now. And so the things that I would stand up for now and like the way I would stand up for myself now is very different than what I knew how to do in my 20s. I was internalizing racism very differently then. I was feeling like I was the problem versus the system being the problem. And so I remember one situation specifically, I was sitting in one of my school leaders' offices and another teacher had said to me, uh, like my mixed kids actually do really well on our standardized tests because I'm mixed and it's like it was pretty known. Um, Even when they're not mixed with white. And it's like, wait, what? Like, and there were so many complex emotions. And at 20 something, I'm like, I don't know. I know I don't feel good about this. I don't know why I don't feel good about this.
Yeah.
So I went to my leader's office and like said, like, this is what happened. I don't know how to respond. I don't feel good. My leader like laughed and she said, like, well, he does really great on the test scores though. And like that was the end of the conversation. And I was like, oh, that's the response? Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
just supposed to move on because the test scores are good? Um, and then I had another situation where there somebody was leaving and this like facilitator role was open. And like logically, I was next in line and I was told from a side, there was a meeting about it and they said that you were too emotional. And I know it was directed like directly at that moment. And I did have enough awareness at that point to be like, I got angry black woman because I'm like one of the
Yeah.
only black people in the building.
Yeah.
You angry black woman to me in this moment when I'm watching all sorts of other people have emotions, and that's fine, but I'm not allowed to just stand up for myself. And so that for me was the moment where it was like, I'm not safe here. It's time to move on. I'm not loved the way that I love what we're doing here, and it's time to go.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And obviously, we'll just keep talking about your other experiences. But this, you know, a lot of us start teaching in our 20s and are still figuring ourselves out, like you said. And the expectation is like, certainly, this person who's a leader will know how to guide me through a particular situation. And like, what a letdown it is to know that that's the response, right? It's like, oh well, of course that makes sense, or what, or no, or nothing at all, or silence, and then that retaliation um is doubling the harm, tripling, quadrupling the harm that you experienced. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think in our 20s too, especially in a place, Colorado is not known as like a black mecca, right? Like we are
Not at
not.
all. Not at
Denver
all.
is not, it's not like the Atlantas, it's not the DCs where there's a lot of us too,
Yeah.
right? So we're like sort of scattered, right? We're very scattered and, you know, intentionally. So that's a different conversation. But
Mm-hmm.
so we grow up in these systems too, because remember, I was in the same system I was raised by. Um, and those systems are harmful from jump towards Black students, Black kids. They have us internalizing all sorts of oppression. And so in our 20s, as we're trying to figure out how to feel about ourselves, we're returning back to systems that have harmed us from jump. And
Absolutely.
so, of course, I'm not like solid in the way that I feel about my identity if this is what I've been trying to navigate and honestly counteract my whole life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really an interesting point. Yeah, if that's experience that you've always had, and if you're generationally been here in Denver, right, then that's another layer on top of that. Um, and that's tough. That's super tough. Some of the audience knows that I'm from Detroit, and coming here and teaching here, and not seeing what I saw in Detroit, which is black teachers and then white teachers and brown teachers who were down for the cause. You don't teach in my DPS just because you just love kids. You have to like love kids for real and love the neighborhoods and communities. At least when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s. And
Mhm.
yeah, so it's a uphill. It's a tough uphill climb to live here and then want to come back and teach here. Which again, I mean, your mom, seeing, like you said, reflecting on all those pieces. So then this was your time in the middle school
Yes.
before you went on to the high school. So yeah, so tell us about some of your experiences at the high school as the dean.
Like I said, it really was like every day you're dealing with some of the hardest situations of the hard. And our schools are so under-resourced that we also I mean, in working with a social worker, she's 1 to 700 as well. Like that's our
Oh,
ratio.
wow.
And so when you're dealing with so many things that require immediate attention, right? We're trying to make sure students are safe, that they have somewhere to go at night. All of these things, it is hard. It is
Mm-hmm.
hard and it drains. Um, but again, too, it is some of the best relationships that you'll develop are in like they were in my dean's office, right? Where like I'm checking on you every morning, you're checking on me when we leave at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day. Like, I don't think, I mean, at least nobody that I know that has left education left it because of the students. We left it because of the systems, because of the infrastructures, because of the institutions. So even as a dean, I mean, I loved working with the students I worked with. It was just too much for one person and too much for two people. And I was working too at a school. I figured in my middle school to high school transition, I needed to go somewhere that was intentionally trying to be culturally competent, like intentionally as far as like the way the school was designed, the way the structures. I wanted to go to one where there were also like more Black students, more Black people around, because I thought, well, maybe if there's more of us, I can figure this out in a different way,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's like a mentoring aspect or whatever it is. Um, and I think what places don't realize is you can't just put a whole bunch of students from different races in a building and think it's going to be all great.
Say
You
that.
have to do
Say that.
intentional
Yes.
work. Yes, you have to do intentional work to make sure that, again, you're countering dominant messages that they're hearing in society, in the world. Like I was there in the first Trump presidency, and so the messages they're getting from the rest of society says who's superior, who is lower in that caste system. And so, without us doing intentional work around it, we saw some very racially difficult situations that people were not equipped to deal with because the system said just put them all in a building, it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
great. That's not
Mm-hmm.
what actual integration looks like. You have to do
Mm-hmm.
actual work. So, that made for a lot of really challenging situations too.
Yeah, I remember my first year here. I was first time I heard a brown person, a child, a student. I was walking to somewhere, and a brown student used the N word, and I was just like floored because again, in Detroit, somebody getting a beat down. I'm sorry, that's not happening. And for his fellow, classmates to just, it was just like business as usual, and that happening over and
Yes.
over again. Right? I've had Asian students, the same experience, and so I'm experiencing shock and harm. I don't know, and I'm still trying to process: is this normal here? What? And so you think about, like you said, you thinking put them all into the same building, sprinkle in a few educators of color, and it's going to be all good. That is false. That is false, and it's the laziest thing that you can do in education when it comes to supporting our children of color. When it comes to
Mhm.
having conversation, there's no conversation. When it comes to cultural competence, it's just like surely they'll just figure it out amongst themselves. And I just don't know how we get to that point in education that we believe that to be true.
Um, well, and I think even too, it's the way even those situations are handled then, right? Because
Yes,
same,
exactly.
the N-word's flying everywhere. Why am I the only one who's doing the sharp head turn? Like, no, thank you. And let's talk about the origin of that word. And let's talk about why
Yeah,
you will not be using it.
yeah,
Because then too, it was white teachers coming to me to say, like, hey, I heard this student say the N-word. Can you go talk to him? Can you? Like,
yeah,
why? You see a problem with it too, right? So speak on the problem. Don't just come straight to me and say, like, this on you, Black representative.
yeah. The invisible labor is not on your teacher eval. Help
No.
support teacher with you the usage of N word in hallway. meeting, passing. Like
Yeah.
that's all the labor, all that extra work on top of, like you said, 350 students, one social worker, raising a 2 year old, figuring out your own stuff. It's
Yeah.
just not there. The stacking and stacking of the labor.
Yes. And I like seeing it and talking about it as a tax. And like you are taxing the ones who are already taxed in
Yeah,
all of these different areas of life. But you're putting that extra tax on me to say, Black representative, this is on you to fix all of this.
yeah.
Versus saying, actually, I got a little more to give in this space. Let me support. Because you know it's wrong. Like that's the part that would get me all the time. You know it's wrong enough that you're coming to me about it. At
Mm-hmm.
what point do you internalize and say, so I need to do something about it too, because I
Mm-hmm.
know it's wrong?
Yeah, I think we can go down a wormhole or rabbit hole or whatever about this, but these are the same folks who will go to a No King's Day parade and with a sign, because that's like, far away from the actual problem. Like if you feel so good about that and you want to get in your car, drive downtown, park your car, make your sign, but you can't handle this in your school, that would support people, the shift in the thinking of a child's mind, but you want to go out in the street and walk around for 3 hours. Like, please, the problem is here too.
Yes.
Yes, it's in DC, but it's also right here in your school where you work, and you've chosen to do nothing. So why even go to the parade? That's all
Mhm.
for photo ops. That's all for feel good. That's not real.
Yeah. And going to the parade with like a coffee cup too, right? Like that shows me like the mentality that you got your thermos or whatever and walking down the street. I'm like, that's not resistance. That's
No,
not
it's aesthetics,
resistance.
right? It's like, let me my little, yeah, exactly. And especially, oh, Colorado, oh, Denver, Aurora too. I'm calling Aurora out too. It's not the same city. Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about that. After the social worker, she talked to you and said like, it's time. Was that something where you like immediately you put in your 2 weeks? Did you ride the school year out? What were the conversations you had with your husband
Mhm.
about this? I'd love to know what was going through your mind once you realized, yeah, she's right.
Yeah. So it was twofold here. I was put into a situation, like what led to this was I was put into a situation that I didn't feel safe. There was actual like risk of harm. And was put in that situation with no support, sort of like left out to dry. And so I already had gone home that day and been like, I can't do this anymore. Like I can't. I have a 2-year old. That is my priority. That has
Mm-hmm.
always been my priority as a parent. And so I think it was actually even the next day that I went to the social worker and I was like, I feel horrible. I don't think I can do this. So, and that's when she said that. And for me, I'm always gonna try and write out the school year because
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
know what happens when we don't, right? Like I know how so many things can fall to the wayside when we don't. So I did finish my school year.
And what month
Um,
was this when you had this realization?
Whoa, it's a fever dream now because I'm like, I don't actually know.
Oh wow, that's
Like
real. That's real.
I think there was a little bit of trauma in that too, where there's a trauma response that says, okay, we can't associate anymore with that, to
Yeah,
be
that's
honest,
so real.
mentally, because it was scary. It was really, really scary. I want to say it was mid-school year. So I was like,
Sure.
okay, let me ride this out, but figure out what's next while I'm riding it out. Because also I'm like not in one of those situations where we can just not work while I figure out my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I do know I finished the school year and then went to the next.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. And so went to the next. You were still in education. Did you do something else? Tell us about that next place.
Yeah, so even since then, I've been in education in the
Mm-hmm.
education world. Um, I, as a dean, I saw a lot of students who the struggle with the now was they couldn't see the later. Like they couldn't see what comes after this that I need to care about because so much of what's happening in high school all day, I don't actually care about.
Mm-hmm.
Like algebra 2 is real hard to connect to when you're trying to figure out where your next meal is coming from. So for a lot of them, I was in a school that was very much like college. We're doing college. And for some of them students, they were like, cool story, but that doesn't feel right now. And I had heard a counselor at one point also say, the way that I'm working with students is I just tell them take whatever loans you have to take to go to college. And I was like, wait, no, no. Um, for so many of us, myself included, that loan hit is going to disadvantage us for the rest of our lives. And
Mm,
so, no, that needs to not be, this cannot be the story. And so I actually went and worked for the state because to me, it was a systemic issue as well, what was happening to students after they left high school. And so I wanted to work in a space where we were more intentional about not just saying it's credential attainment, but what are all the other things that have to be around a student in order for them to ever think about that credential. It's all of those social determinants of health. And there has to be a connection to the real world for them.
yeah,
Like, so many of us need to know what's happening after this that's going to get
yeah.
me financially okay. It's going to take care of my family. And those were just not the conversations we were having. And so I went to the state specifically again with an eye on honestly Black and Brown students because those were the ones I was working with who weren't graduating, who like all the different things um, and saw that the system is what I learned at the state level is
Yeah.
the system's been systeming for a very long time and is not quite ready to not do that.
I have so many questions about that. And before I ask my questions, I just think about Najma Ahmed, who she's been on the podcast, and she also kind of went to the state level, and I remember her saying, like, I could see what the problem is, and if we just did this thing, we could just solve this issue in education. And it was like no one was interested in actually solving the problem. And so as I do not know this part of your story, and I'm not making any predictions, but I remember her saying that and just thinking like, oh, that's just so heavy. So your time at the state, you're looking around, you're excited. This is it. You can. We're going to help the kids. You're going to figure out this after high school workforce, kind of help them to see what the future could be for them. But you didn't stay there. What did you realize in your time that helped you decide, like, yeah, it's not working? Like, I'm working, but the system is also working, and we're not working in the same direction.
I think we have to think about how these systems were historically developed, like what they were even stood up to do and be. And it wasn't to support people like me, and it wasn't to support Black kids and brown kids, right? So the system is working how it's supposed to work, like how it was built to work, how it wants to work. And that was a really hard realization, even internally, seeing like, oh, there's a lot of spaces in these systems that don't feel like this is a problem.
Mm,
Um, and I think one of my years there was 2020. And
mm,
so
sure.
we're going through, George Floyd's murder. And that's, I hate to say it, but for me, even that was a racial awareness moment that woke me up. That was like, wait, we're still doing this? Like, we're still
Yeah.
doing this. And then in state agencies, I wanted there to be outrage. I wanted there to be like, man, we got you. Things are going to be, we are going to fix things. We're going to burn things down, rebuild things. And it was very much like, that sucks that that happened, but
Mm,
we got to keep moving. And that was really hard for me to be like angry and developing historical consciousness and racial consciousness and being told like this isn't the place for that. And if this isn't the place for that, a safe system, then what is the place? And so I developed, a different kind of anger. It was a different kind of anger that I hadn't experienced yet towards systems themselves. Um, and I worked on Colorado's talent equity agenda, where we were looking at gaps across different racial demographics in the state when it came to workforce. And those numbers are not pretty. Those numbers are not pretty. And I am a Black woman who was just looking at, as I was analyzing data, we were on the bottom of every chart or the top of every chart, and it was never good. Never good. And every
mm,
time I would say, what are we going to do? Like, what are we doing? It would be like, well, we don't have enough data to know. Or we can't actually make any systems do anything. Like we're here more as like this grant manager and overseer. And I was like, then who, right? Then who?
Yeah.
If we are not the ones that can actually affect this, then who? And so that's when I moved into the next, when I said, well, maybe nonprofits it. Similar story, right?
I love
And
that you're
then
hitting you're hitting everything on the
I
bingo card.
have, I have,
Yeah.
I have, because it's really just been like, so where? Because this system and this institution and this space keeps telling me we are not the ones to change those numbers. And I have spent so much of my career then being like, then who?
Yeah.
Um, and where I've actually landed, and I know this is a later question, but it works right now. Um, I went then back after doing all these things and then hearing still not this system. I said, then apparently I don't know what I need to know to do the damage to the system I'm trying to do. And so
Yeah.
I then said,
I
let's
love
get a.
that though. Do the damage to the system that I need to do. Oh, I
Mhm,
love that. Thank you.
mhm. I didn't know. And so I said, well, where do I find out? Still this internalized piece then said, you need more education.
Hmm.
And so I'm said, now let's get a PhD then. Like that's the
Because
thing.
yeah, why not?
Because that's the logical thing, not realizing again at the moment, that's another system. That's another system.
Yeah.
And so, where I've actually landed through reading and being in community and being with people, I knew what the thing was all along, and it's with the people themselves, right? And it's like, it's not me understanding systems of social determinants to break those down and build them up. It's we understanding systems of racism and the
Hmm.
way that we have been systemically oppressed, the way that it is being internalized in our youth, and collectively taking that power back to say there has got to be a different way, and we're going to make sure we're working towards that way.
That that I know that there's folks who are in systems still who on the path that you're on and may realize this on their own or think, oh, it's different here in Atlanta. Oh, it's not the same here in California. Well, I live in Baltimore, but if you should have just moved to here and here and here. And as a person who's interviewed so many people all over the country, please understand, excuse me, please understand, folks, that what Kelly is saying is happening everywhere. All black staff, black and brown staff, students, private school students, public school, charter school, middle, high, elementary, charter. And it's not just like all that individual has to do with blah. Systems are very savvy, and we do have to figure out how to educate our people. I always say this. Harriet Tubman was not knocking on plantation doors on the big house door like, I just want to talk to y'all about equity for my people. No, she was like, I'm gonna be here in 2 full moons. You here, we out. You not
Yes.
here, you get it left. There was no like, Harriet Tubman was like, let me show you this TED talk. Let's do a white fragility like book club. No, sis said, if you turn around, I'm gonna shoot you. Get that baby quiet. We out of here. It's like, how
Yes.
many of us have to take the Harriet Tubman approach to this work? Which
Mm.
means for a lot of us, get like whatever that is in our stomach that still believes. We have to like ride that out. And that's so, so hard because everything we've been taught says this could change. We're the generation, we're the blah blah. And I don't know if that's true. And every interview has convinced me it's not true.
Yeah. Well, and I think what we've been taught too is that it is individual, that everything has to
Mm,
be individual. And so even when I said earlier, like we've been split up, yeah, that was intentional, right? Because we
yeah,
are far less powerful individually than we are
yeah,
together. But we have, I mean, we have our people. We want to grow up and be Oprah. We want to grow up and be LeBron. We want to grow up and be the one that made it, right? The one that broke
yeah.
that stereotype, that mold. And so I was actually working last semester in a high school doing some like history from a Black perspectives work. And that students were they were upset at one point and they were like, Miss, why is this the first time we're hearing things like this? We done made it all the way through high school. And one of them was like, they last week talked about Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks is tired. That's why she sat there on the bus. He was like, no, Rosa Parks was a movement of all sorts of collective people. She was an activist. This
Mm-hmm.
was planned, it was intentional. Why are
Mm-hmm.
we not hearing it that way? And part of me is like, you know why?
Yeah. Yeah. So in the same conversation, I'm going to ask my questions a little backwards because we're already talking about it. What are you doing now? Tell us about. You said you've hit everything on the bingo card. You've done the nonprofit, everything else. So what are you up to now?
Trying my best
In
every
Jesus' name,
day,
glory to
like,
Him.
trying to survive. Um, I mean, I laugh. That is one piece. I'm trying to survive this, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite books, Rest is Resistance, Trisha Hersey, right? Where she talks about like, for a lot of us, our job right now is to be well.
Yeah,
Like our resistance, one of the best pieces of resistance we can provide is that we are good through this. We are okay because the system is going to do everything in its power to disenfranchise us and make sure we're not okay. And so one of them is I'm trying very hard to just be okay.
yeah,
Another piece, like in my life's work, is I run a consulting org. And the reason behind that was okay, now I've been within so many of these systems. I now need to work between them because there are a lot of
mm,
us still within these systems who are doing the work. How do we connect those people too who have the power within the systems to start changing it as a whole ecosystem? And so I work now across state agencies, I work across schools, I work across nonprofits, community orgs, people. Um, Really doing this like community and equity centered work towards career pathways and workforce development.
mm-hmm.
Um, because still, I mean, we are still all working in racial capitalism, which requires us to think about how to dismantle and rebuild, but we also still need to survive. And
Yeah,
so, still thinking through how do we get people into jobs where they are economically mobile, especially in Colorado, where our cost of living is astronomical.
it is.
And so I really look at it from both spaces now and in this like working across spaces to try and do the work. I also am finishing up this PhD one day. I know I got a lot of people who are pulling me across this finish line. And my research there is very much what I said here earlier in that I think about, and I'm in learning sciences, so how do people learn is what I look at, but specifically in Black communities where we learn our local histories, and the key here is local too, from a Black lens, through oral histories, through policy analysis, through artifact review. How does that change our actions towards liberation, and how does it change our freedom dreams themselves? Because yes, it would be really cool to have Oprah's money, but I don't know that that's helping all of us as a collective break outside the
Mm-hmm.
racial capitalist system anyway. And the
Mm-hmm.
way that you break through it is you have to understand it. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of places where we're not learning that, right? We're learning the opposite. We're learning the dominant narrative. We're learning meritocracy, versus understanding that there is something for us to fight for and reclaim that our people have been fighting for. For us specifically, I study Five Points, which used to be the Harlem of the West. And we got kids growing up right now in that area who have no
Yeah,
idea what that area was, or that there's something even to reclaim or
yeah,
even have pride over.
yeah. It's beautiful. And what's the name of your consulting firm?
Inclusive Design Group,
Yeah, I want to make sure.
IDG.
I want to make sure that people know that if they want to reach out. All right, so you've been in the nonprofit space, the state space. You run a consulting firm. You've middle school, high school. You've done almost everything, and so or observed observed and been in spaces, workforce development. From your perspective, what do you think that schools, districts, unions, I'll even include states, can do to retain Black educators? Not just recruit, but retain Black educators.
Hmm. We've had this conversation before, and you really pushed my thinking on this. So I think for a lot of the time, I was thinking about a recruitment standpoint. Because for me too, I think about this early space, and I talked a little bit about it earlier, but we can't expect people to come back to a system that has actively harmed disproportionately them their entire childhood, right? Like disproportionately disciplined, disproportionately identified as special needs, disproportionately everything. Why would I want to come back to that system when I had to fight so hard to get out of it in the first place? And
Mm-hmm.
so that's one thing I try and think about too is like, how are we giving students even an experience that makes them want to come back,
Mm-hmm.
and not just fighting for their lives to graduate?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one piece I think of. Then you were pushing my thinking on it, and I was like, what would have retained me? Right? I am part of the population. So what would have kept me? I think for many teachers, it's a lot of the same basics as far as the workload was not sustainable. The pay was not good for what we were trying to do. The work-life balance doesn't exist, right? So there's that infrastructure piece. But I would have loved to have been around leaders, other teachers who understood it, who understood what I was having to go through in a different way. Um, like the moments that pushed me out could have easily also kept me in if they were handled in a certain fashion, right? Like if we're talking about mixed students and that leader had my back, oh, okay, you value me here. Like I want to be seen, I want to be valued, I want to be heard. Same way students do, right? Same way any of us do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there were just, yeah, like I said, there were ways that those situations could have been handled differently and kept me, um, by having some sort of cultural awareness, some sort of awareness of what is the history of Black teachers in the US, in the state. What is this tax we're having them pay? What does even the data say? I was in such a data-driven school that you would think that data on teachers would have been looked at.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't. It just
Yeah.
wasn't. So I think being seen would have been really helpful in retaining me. I also think about like mentorship always feels a little bit iffy to me, to be honest, because at one of the state agencies I worked with, they said, we're going to start a mentoring program for Black state employees. And this was in 2020. And at that point, I was like, to do what? To tell me how to navigate a system that you all just need to rebuild anyway? Like, why are you putting that extra piece on us? Like,
Yeah.
and it was really said, like, to understand the things that maybe aren't said. What?
The the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house.
Ever in life, I need some new tools. I'm working on it. But
Say
the
that.
the thing is, I do think you cannot be alone and in isolation as a Black teacher.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it's not, it's again not sustainable. And at one point, at one of my schools, like I said, was overseeing our teacher residency program there. And I had another Black female teacher candidate come through. And I look back on this in so many ways now, but for me, it was like, okay, there's another one, right? There's another one.
Mm-hmm.
But because of my internalized oppression, I said, I need to help her be better than anybody else in this building. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I got to hold her to this high standard because I know what she's going to go through. I look back at that now, again, I would have handled that so different. It's not about her being better than everybody else, it's about the system looking at itself and saying, why are we holding her to a different
Yeah.
standard?
Say that.
And so now I would push back in different ways to make sure that she has that cocoon around her. She has that safe space. and that in my seniority, I'm able to push back differently. But again, in my 20s, still having this system internalized in me, I didn't have that awareness. I was recreating and perpetuating the stereotype of the superwoman, all while trying to help her survive. So I think that it does take mentorship, but intentional mentorship. Don't just put people together because we're both Black.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are we doing to make sure that um, it's to truly help each other and we're not just perpetuating the same thing that's killing us?
Yeah. Dang, Kelly. You said a lot. You said
I'm
so
sorry.
much. And I do hear so many people saying like, I was given a mentee, and I making sure that they do over and abundant, over the top, more than they need to do, and to prove themselves. And I got to a place where you can see that that person who's talking has their own things to work out, and I just there's no sense of me going back and forth with that person. But I just think, ugh,
Yeah.
like when you similar to you when you look back on that situation, I wonder if you're gonna realize like, oh no, like that was just not the right direction, or if they even realize it at
Hmm.
all. That's the thing
Mm.
too. It's like sometimes we just retire or whatever we do and don't have a chance to reflect or choose not to reflect on yes the good times and some of the harm that we may have caused to our
Yes.
students, to others, colleagues or whatever. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. um, in the conversation of Black educators that you've worked with that have taught you, who you have taught, are there Black educators that you would like to shout out on the show?
Yeah. So I just had this conversation with my family. Because me and my husband graduated from the same high school. Now we're raising this little one. And I was like, Chris, how many Black educators did you have? Because I was going through it and I was like, okay, my third grade teacher, my piano teacher in middle school. I didn't have a Black teacher in high
Mm.
school at all. And then he was like, my principal in middle school. And I was like, okay, but teacher, like, we grew up in a highly diverse area with no Black teachers, right?
Yeah,
No Black teachers.
yeah.
But there is definitely, I have to shout out uh, Mr. John Buckner. There's a lot of things named after Mr. John Buckner in this city,
Sure,
in this state.
yeah.
So I graduated from Overland High School. Go Trailblazers. There's not many of us left. We're not like the East Angels and the Manual Thunderbolts. If you know, you know. They're everywhere. Um, but Mr. Buckner was my principal um, in high school, my entire high school time. And I went through a lot of things at home during high school, as many people do. I had a hard time. I had a really, really hard time. We had a lot of trauma. We had lot of loss at that time. And I have to back up slightly. I get long-winded. I'm sorry here. I get
Oh, you're
long-winded.
good.
But in middle school, my grandparents had a huge hand in raising me. And in middle school, I was watching this episode of College Jeopardy with my grandpa. And College Jeopardy, the dude from Northwestern won. And me and my grandpa had this like shared moment of like, well, then I guess I got to go Northwestern, right? Like this man won. I need to be like him. And so everything I did in high school was to go to Northwestern
Mm.
because I couldn't afford that. Like I got a single parent. I can't afford Northwestern. So my mom said, you want to go there? You better find that money. Like, you better
Yeah.
find that money. And to find that money, I needed the straight A's. I needed the job. I needed the extracurriculars. Like I needed all the things. On paper, I needed to be dang near flawless. And so I worked my butt off to do that. We lost my grandpa my sophomore year of high school. And I lost the plot, to be honest. My whole family lost the plot.
Mm.
I was still getting my straight A's, all these things. Senior year comes around. I had put in some applications to some places, but like I said, I had lost the plot. Mr. Buckner comes up to me. He had this thing where he would like grab our elbows to get our attention. And he came up to me, grabbed my elbow. He said, Kelly, how's those applications going? I was like, I didn't even know he knew. Like I had never really talked to him before. And I was like, yeah, they're in. It's fine. And he was like, that Northwestern one? And I was like, what? I was like, I'm
Mm.
sorry, what? And I was like, you know what? I think I just can't. Like I was unwell. I was very, very unwell. And I was like, I just don't think I can. He took me straight to that counseling office and he goes, Miss Kennedy, who was not my counselor, but she was like the lead of the counselors.
Anybody, yes.
Yeah, anybody who is here right now. And he was like, Kelly needs to get her application in Northwestern. I need you to help her do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? It was due in 2 days, Dr. Lyons. It was due in 2 days. I hadn't started it. I hadn't looked at it. She sat with me for, I want to say, 2 days and made sure that application got done. Like we had to write letters from scratch. We had to get letters. We had to do all
Sure.
the things. And I was like, okay, okay. And I remember, I remember getting this letter. Whenever you get your college acceptance letters, I was going to Illinois at that point. I was going to U of I. They gave me some money. I was going to U of I. I got that letter with my mom in the kitchen, and it was a full acceptance letter to Northwestern on a full ride. And I was like, oh my God, like we did it. Like, Grandpa, we did it. We did it. I'm
Yeah.
like, you got me emotional over here. Like, all that trauma, all that work, and we did it. My mom cried, and I cried, and in the fall, I was at Northwestern, and I even remember because my grandpa's always with me. You know, it's been decades now. My grandpa's always with me. We used to when I was little. You know those trees that had the little, we called them helicopter seeds.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah.
like you drop them and they fly.
Yeah.
We would play with those all the time. And I was having a hard time in Northwestern. That's a whole nother conversation about college. Um, and I was just walking through campus, and all of a sudden, all these little helicopters came down. And I was like, Grandpa, you
Yeah.
here? You here? And I got like even a tattoo now of them. And so, yeah, Mr. Buckner, I don't know where I'd be without Mr. Buckner. And so every time, like, I see that he's got another thing named after him, he passed away. He passed away a bit ago. Every time I see another thing named after him, I'm just like, yeah, yeah, you did that thing. And thank you so much.
Mm. Wow. That's an incredible story. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much.
Thanks for
Um,
giving me the space to do it.
of course, of course. So our last question, you've talked about, it was challenging in high school and the
Mm.
realization that you need to take better care of yourself when you were a dean. And so the last question is, what does it mean to be well?
There's another one I just asked my daughter. So I was like, what does it mean? Hey, it's like, what are we out here doing?
Yeah.
Her answer was gorgeous. And I was like, hey, we're doing something. We're doing something. Like, I didn't want her to be like Gucci bags, you know, like I wanted her to be
Right.
like
Of course.
some
Matching flip flops. Yes.
right. Um, I'm trying to be whole. Like being well means being whole. And being whole for me is like it's greater than the bank account. It's greater than the accolades, the awards, the degrees. It's like, am I waking up excited for something? Right? Like it's gonna be dark. It's gonna be dark. It's dark right now, right? Like it's dark right now, but what am I doing to help myself keep the light in focus? And up here in Erie, Colorado, as a Black woman, for me, it's been like real intentional community building. Like,
Mm-hmm.
let's do women of color co-working. Let's do
Mm-hmm.
some oral histories. Let's do all these things because I don't want to feel alone. I don't want to be alone. And so I'm reading my Trisha Hersey. I'm reading my Octavia Butlers. I'm reading all the people, the elders, the currents who are on the same journey of trying to be well too, because it's not just the money and the accolades. There's got to be something bigger for us all than climbing this ladder that they've put us on. And so I do things that I just try and feel good. I read, I travel, sit outside, I touch grass, you know, but I don't, man, I think going through it right now, I'm still in a place of trying to figure that out for myself, like trying to figure out where the road is actually leading me. Um, so I don't have a solid answer for that yet. I hope one day to have a solid answer, but right now I'm just trying to be happy. I'm trying to be a good person. I'm trying to survive. I'm trying to raise a good person. Good Lord, that's hard.
Yeah.
I'm just trying my best. Asia, what
Yeah.
does it mean for you to be well? This is the question. What does it mean for you to be
Oh,
well?
it's to
I'm
be
trying to
at
learn.
peace. It's to be at peace wherever I am, to be in the present, right? Um to have hope. I think that's really
Mm,
big for me is like my wellness definitely depends on hope for the future and to know that it can be better, it will be better. It means to be well to see my black girl, my own daughter, laugh and be well and just have her friend group of black and brown girls who love her and that she loves. To be loved by my
mm,
husband. To That's what it means to be well. Is to wake up in my body and to be sure of myself. Where I
mm,
know, and also in my 20s and in my 30s, honestly, there was times where I'm like was just in shreds and could not
mhm.
figure things out and had let the system turn me every which way and having to turn myself loose. And so that's what it means to be well, is to just kind of maintain my peace and always come back to it and to constantly tell myself, well, what's true right now? What's good right now when everything else can seem like it's on fire?
Ah,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And you're not the first person I've heard this like sense of peace from, too.
Yeah.
Like Black people trying to find this sense of peace when everything is seemingly falling apart.
Yeah.
And I also love what people say that, like, for Black people, it was never really put together. Like, it's always
No.
been falling apart.
Yeah.
And so part of the struggle is, despite that, and despite all the pieces against us, how are we still okay?
Yeah. How are we reaching for liberation individually and collectively every day? And that's huge for me. That's what's this
Mhm,
podcast. All these things are helping me to be well. So, yeah, that's it.
mhm. Even our hair conversations.
Yeah,
I'm becoming much
exactly.
better.
Exactly. The shampoo swaps and the videos and the
Yeah.
tutorials. Yeah, just trying to make sure that our daughter's hair is not dry and crusty out here.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
trying to break too, right? Like I had relaxers from age 6, like
Say
trying to
that.
break the generational trauma because they had their own trauma too, right? Like trying to
Yes.
figure out how do we love ourselves in a world that
Yes.
is set up to hate us.
Ooh, yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah. All right, Kelly. So, this is the end of our conversation. Folks, I've been chasing Kelly for a long time, and I'm so glad that she slowed down long enough to hang out with me for a little bit. And I
It's
hope that you
amazing.
all, yeah, I hope that you all are blessed by her story. Um, Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll see you on the next episode. All right, peace. Thank you for joining us for today's episode of The Exit Interview, a podcast for Black educators. Every story shared here is a reminder that our wellness matters and that thriving in education is possible when we create spaces of care and belonging. If today's conversation spoke to you, we'd love to keep in touch. You can sign up for our newsletter at exitinterviewpodcast.com or connect with me on LinkedIn to stay up to date on upcoming workshops, consulting opportunities, and ways we're transforming stories into solutions. And before you close out, take a deep breath. Remember that caring for yourself isn't extra, it's essential. Whether you're an educator seeking rest or a school leader reimagining support, you're part of this growing community of care.